Good day all, how are we all? I hope we're all well. As always, if you're new here, like and subscribe. Means the world to channels like us. Easy for you, little pop on the button, means the world to us. When I first came up with the idea for this video, my intention was to do top 5 boxing analysts working today. But quite honestly, I found it too hard to rank a top 5. So that kind of idea went out the window. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you my clear number 1. The commentary thing is a bit of a subject of controversy sometimes with who's good, who's bad. I'm going to do and how I looked at them was current, so I'm not going to do the past greats, of which there have been quite a few. 2 greats from the past that stand out to me was firstly Jim Watt. I think his knowledge of the game was unparalleled. There's an old saying that goes, and this is true with Jim Watt. He's forgotten more about the game than most people ever know, and I think that's so true with the likes of Jim Watt. Also, I think one of the others, almost by sort of extension, is he was one of the truly great trainers of our time. Sadly passed now, but Manny Stewart was as exceptional as a trainer he was. I think he was exceptional as a sort of a commentator or an analyst as well. They usually get the play-by-play guy or the blow-by-blow guy who does the bulk of the commentary, and then you get what's called the colour guy who comes in and adds his sort of conjecture on sort of bits in the fight. But so yeah, they were 2 of the greats, Jim Watt and Manny Stewart. Manny Stewart, he would sort of hark back to, which I believe for me, and it was almost the time I grew up with boxing, or just after anyway, but the golden era of commentary and fight broadcasting was HBO, quite clearly for me. It was a sad day when they announced that they were pulling away from boxing. I think it was just down to finances, quite frankly. But the old HBO team were as good as they got. They really were the GOATs for me. And their team consisted of Jim Lampley, Max Kellerman, who I love to listen to. Max Kellerman was great. And they also had Roy Jones, and as I said, Manny Stewart, and also the great Larry Merchant. Now, Larry Merchant was really, really top draw. He again was one of the greats, weren't he? Larry was. That HBO team just, and in the same way, I don't know if you think this as well. With any dramatised documentary series or dramatised series, drama series, documentaries, HBOs are a level above everyone else. We had Chernobyl, we had Game of Thrones, to name just a few. Mayor of Eastham was over. HBO just done it that much better. And I think their boxing coverage was exactly the same. HBO were just a level above, weren't they, I thought. And then I think in this country, you had the likes of... so you had Jim Watt and Reg Guttridge in the early days, and then when it moved over to Sky, you had... Ian Darke and Glenn McCrory. Ian Darke done a bit of football as well, as far as I can remember, but Ian Darke was fantastic. He was prominent around the sort of the Nazim Hamid days, which was a great era for British boxing. So yeah, you had Ian Darke, and then moving over, and we've talked about him a lot recently, was Adam Smith. Now, he just, after the days of McCrory and Darke, Adam Smith just became the voice of British boxing, didn't he? Almost. And because Sky at the time were covering a lot of sort of global world title fights, he was almost the voice of boxing. If you're a UK fan, Adam Smith was. So with Adam Smith's recent sort of cancer battle and he beat that, I really would be welcome back to see Adam Smith back on some boxing commentary, because he may have took a while to grow on you, but as I said before, in terms of dramatic moments, Adam Smith was almost unrivaled, wasn't he? Yeah, so when I was trying to pick a top 5, that was a really difficult decision, and I couldn't really rank them. I could give you 5, but I thought it wasn't fair. I really need to rank them. But I think, I'll tell you who I really like lately, who's not done a lot, but he's now starting out on it, and that's George Groves. I think he's done some wonderful on-air stuff lately. I like, another great one I like is Chris Algieri. He's really good, has some really fantastically accurate technical breakdown. Carl Froch I like, and I don't always agree with Carl Froch, and he's not right all the time, but he's objective and he's honest. He does it with integrity. Whether he's right or he's wrong, he's not biased to a TV company that he happens to be working for, or a fighter aligned with a promotional company whose gig he tends to be working on. So, like I say, right or wrong, you got to respect the way he delivers. Darren Barker's another good one. Quite like Darren Barker. A lot of people think he's a bit of a company man, but don't mind Darren Barker at all. I think the main thing for me when ranking or valuing a TV analyst is integrity. Because if you're doing it with integrity, that requires a certain amount of bravery. Because if you're always going to be brutally honest, there's always a chance you can end up looking a fool or end up with egg on your face. If you're not swayed by any biases, or you don't go with the majority sort of reading of a fighter or a situation, there's always a chance you can come up looking silly. So integrity for me, as long as an analyst does it with integrity and they're honest and they're true to their opinion, I'm happy if they're wrong. But if they're doing it from a point of honesty, integrity, and objectivity, that's good enough for me. And that leads me on to who I believe, for me personally, is clearly head and shoulders above any analyst working today. And as a fighter, he almost made a career out of being disliked because of his unfiltered views, shall we say. He said exactly what he thought, regardless or not whether it was going to land him in hot water or end up with him being disliked and so on. So for that reason, and for many others, which I'm going to broach shortly, my top TV analyst working today, by some distance, for me, is Paulie Malignaggi. Now, regardless of what you think of Paulie Malignaggi as a fighter, famously, he didn't have a punch. And I sometimes think with guys who don't have a punch, know they're not punchers, so have to strategically break down their approach when it comes to fighting and their way they approach a fight. The guys who don't have a punch have to think of it on a deeper level because they haven't got that option of relying on a punch to win the fights. They have to take it a level or two deeper than that. Which is why I think people like Paulie Malignaggi are so good. There's not many times where I've listened to his analysis of a fight or his scoring of a fight and disagreed that much. Most boxing fans who are educated enough to see something correctly will roundabout come up with the same decisions when it comes to overall winners of a fight and the overall appraisal of a fight or fighters. And like I say, Paulie's given many examples of this. And again, as he was as a fighter, in his analysis, he doesn't care who he upsets because he does it with integrity and he does it with objectivity. Now, one of the finest examples of, I think, how deep Paulie goes and how his intricate understanding of the sport and its nuances goes was surrounding the Liam Smith Chris Eubank rematch. Now, I thought the first Smith Eubank fight, I thought the stoppage, you could also argue, was freak, because to me, Eubank had won every minute of that fight up until that point. Now, when I looked at the stoppage, to me, Eubank had never been close to being scrambled and hurt like that in his career ever. Similarly, Liam Smith had never stopped anyone and hurt anyone with, a relatively, almost a single shot or a very small accumulation of shots that finished him. He had never hurt anyone to that degree ever. So they were both almost out of character, in how Liam Smith hurt Eubank and how Eubank got hurt. They were both very out of character. Now, leading into the second fight, and I know it's easy for me to say this because my channel wasn't working to cover this fight, but I wholeheartedly believe Eubank would win the rematch. Well, I wasn't alone with that. A lot of my friends thought the same. I'm sure a lot of you guys did too. But the majority was certainly for a repeat by Liam Smith. Now, the brilliance of Paulie Malignaggi was summed up in one small interview he did with Spencer Oliver before that fight, where Spencer Oliver put the question to him, what has Chris Eubank Jr. got to change this time to get the outcome in his favour? To which Paulie Malignaggi's response was, you know, the difference between someone who really understands the game and people who think they understand the game. Paulie's response was this: that if anyone had to change their approach going into the rematch, it was Liam Smith. Because if you think Liam Smith can go into this fight in the same way that he did the first fight and expect the same outcome, it's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. Which, can you imagine how many other pundits at the time were suggesting that Liam Smith was the one who had to go into this fight doing something different? But he saw and had the whereabouts enough to recognise that the result of the first fight was that much of a freak. The chances of that happening again were pretty much between slim and none had left town. So that for me was just one standout moment that really separated Paulie from the rest who are working today. And it's for reasons like that and many other times I've seen him analyse fights, analyse fighters and score fights, that for me, and again, just my opinion, you don't have to agree, this is just how I see it, but it's for that reason and for many other reasons that for me, by quite some way, Paulie Malignaggi is the best TV analyst working today in the business. Like I say, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I'm sure they differ greatly because this is a very divided topic, I'm sure. But leave it all in the comments. Can't wait to have a read. Love to hear your opinions. As always, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't pay any price for it anyway. You haven't got to watch, but if now and again you're going to come back, you might as well subscribe and get notifications. Hit the subscribe bell. Anyway, that's it. See you all soon.